This is Home Contractors HQ, episode number 40.
Hey, I'm with my friend Mark Stoner, and he's just written a really interesting book called Blue Collar Gold, How to Build a Service Business from the Dirt Up. Wow, Mark, how did you ever come up with a topic like that?
Well, thanks for asking. I was actually at a conference to learn to be a better speaker, and I happened to work with a guy named Larry Winget, and Larry, part of the process was to write a book. If you're going to speak, you should write a book as well. And actually, my point of view was, hey, America, America doesn't realize the gold mine in blue collar work. And he took it and switched around, says, name of the book is Blue Collar Gold, How to Build a Service Business from the Dirt Up. And I said, you are amazing.
So you didn't want to argue with Larry Winget, did you?
You do not argue. You do not question. He says something, and I say, yes, sir.
How many books has he written, Mark?
He's got, I believe, 7 New York Times bestsellers, and he's written, I think, over 30 books. He's getting ready to come out with a new book. I think it's called Core Corruption. It's getting ready to come out. And, I've just been a fan of his for a long time. And when I had the chance to work with him, and I got all over it, and he and I struck up a friendship on top of that. And we are barbecue buddies, and he's helping me through my steps in this process of being an author and a speaker.
I like the way you said barbecue buddies. Are you hanging with him on the barbecue grill, Mark?
Yeah, he's bought some really heavy-duty barbecue equipment, and also, as you know, I do pro barbecue competitions. And so when we had a common thing, outside of speaking and writing, we became friends, and we have. I think we're going to try to cook together on a pro contest if we can get our schedules together.
Oh my gosh, man!
Yeah,
that's awesome, man. Hey, Mark, I won't hold up too much of your time. I would like to do one or two things. I'd really like to go into a few chapters here from your book, because there's a lot of meat here, and we're going to probably drop these into shorter venues, maybe 5-10 minutes, and we'll knock out a couple of these today and see what we're going to do here. But I would like to start off with your leadership, and I like the way you said it pretty humbly, Mark, that you never looked at yourself as a leader, and from a personal friend, I can really look at you and say, you're not? I mean, look what you've done. I mean, I've traveled with you from your rags to riches stories, but most important, Mark, I love the way you've always drug everybody with you to help them out.
Well, I appreciate that. So, I'm a drummer. So my background is I'm a musician. And so on some bands, the drummer is the leader, but very few. And in my case, I was always just along for the ride for whatever I did. I worked in a factory, and I was just a worker. I was going to school, and I was just a student. I wasn't president of the student body. When I played music, I was the guy in the back. I was the guy helping everybody out. I kept the beat. I kept the rhythm, and you could count on me. And I wasn't out front. I was actually uncomfortable being out front. And so as my professional life changed into more of a business role, I actually learned that I did have some basic leadership skills, and my leadership method is more like being a shepherd. I want to help the flock get to a new pasture. I want to run alongside of you, and I want to give you everything I possibly can, and I want to pick out a place on the horizon or a place over that I think we should all go to, and let me help get the group over there. And as I learned that was my style, and that people, responded well to it, and I had good vision, that type of leadership, when I could see something that needed to happen or change, the way I got people to go along with me was just by really, having their best interest at heart as well. And if we could be on the same page, we could really go a lot faster.
One thing I remember, Mark, that you and I were at a BNI group, and the network that you put together was really interesting, but you taught me something here. To be involved, to be a leader in this, you really have to be a servant. And you told me about getting to the meetings and actually being the one to set up chairs and hand out literature at the door. And I thought, that's an interesting approach of being a leader. And just like you said, it's servantry. It's serving somebody else.
It is. There's several books on it, and one out's called Eaters Eat Last. I'm sorry, Leaders Eat Last. And I believe in that. I believe in let me do the work first to prove that I'm all in. I can't expect anybody to be all in if I'm not all in. And I've never felt comfortable giving direction from on high. I've always felt better giving direction from down within the group. And I've done every single job in the chimney world and learned every single job on the board of directors that I serve on. And for me, it was always part of I need to know how to do the dirty work first, and then possibly I could lead that. But as I started leading more and more, people kept asking me to do more and more things, and I always try to say yes. Let me try to figure out how to do that because I always learn something, and even if I fail, it doesn't really bother me to fail. If I really was terrible at doing something, I probably learned a lot from it, and I want to come back and then I want to share it. I love seeing other people succeed too. It's as exciting as anything is to help someone and see them start running fast. And you and I saw some of that this last weekend at Aileron. Some of those guys that took some of those lessons and are really running fast with them and growing good businesses and having interesting lives. And it's just exciting.
One of the things you say in your leadership that one of your biggest faults you felt with leadership was to avoid confrontations at almost any cost. Would you
Yeah.
like to talk about that a little bit?
Well,
Or is that too
Clay,
confrontational?
that's funny. You actually taught me a lot of leadership, Clay, and I don't know if you really realize it, but early on in some of the groups that you and I were in, you had a method of kind of going right at some of the problems when there was a confrontation, and I always really enjoyed the way you would hit something head on, or the way you would lead was very direct but still very caring, and I was very attracted to that. And I've told you this in the past that I like how you lead people, and it has helped me in the same way. In another story that is close to me, before I could lead very well at all, I would use audio tapes of other leaders like Larry Wingate and other people. I would listen to their tapes or their CDs, and I find passages and areas that I wanted to tell my people, I wanted them to listen. So I would literally play Larry Wingate or somebody else saying something that I wanted the message to get out there. And then when we get done, I say, okay, you hear what he said? We're going to do that. And so I would use their leadership strength to, it's kind of fake it till you make it kind of thing. So I would use them until I felt that I could say that and do that with good leadership. And I just had to just do something with it as I became a leader. I had to use other people to help me.
It's interesting, Mark, because, you always hear this thing, and I think it was Covey or someone that said that you're the average of the 5 people you hang around and know the best.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's so easy today with podcasts and tapes and just videos, YouTube videos of leadership. It's so average, so easy to get 5 people that you really get involved with. This month, what I've done, Mark, is I've actually taken each month and dedicated myself to listening to understand the voice of just one person. And this month is Michael Hyatt down in Nashville.
Right. Yep.
Fabulous. And I think to really know somebody, you really have to listen to them a number of times to hear their heart, to hear their message, to get used to their, their speed and their conversations. And that's really helped me.
Isn't it funny too? Once you do that with a leader, someone you listen to enough, next thing you know, you hear yourself saying some of their sayings, and you even hear yourself thinking kind of the way they think about issues, and you kind of like become a little bit of a part of them, the parts that you like or the parts that you're attracted to. Or for me, the parts I was weak in, I was like, oh, that's how you say that, or that's how you handle that bad situation, because I don't like confrontation. I've gotten a lot better at being slightly confrontational, but in a way that people say, you can tell me the hardest, roughest things, but you do it with a smile, and I never get mad at you when you tell me even the hard things. I like you even more when you tell me the hard things. So I've learned for myself a style of giving somebody bad news or holding someone accountable, but in a way it's not degrading to them, and it's not in a way that puts me up and them down. It's just more matter of fact, we're on the same team, and we've got to get over here, but you're clearly going a different direction. And if you're going to stay on the team, it's less confrontational. It just meets my style.
Well, it's interesting because there is such a difference between just you and I, the way we are as personalities, way of deal with things, and a number of other great people in our industry. But I was sitting here thinking, Larry Winget and Michael Hyatt are such different leaders. But my gosh, both have so much content to provide you to really get you thinking how to grow your business.
I learned that there's no one leadership way that makes a business successful. There is, and as you and I were in that conference, we saw leaders of all different styles, and they were all successful in different ways. And, if people are out there listening and trying to find out if there's one style better than the other, there really isn't. It's just your style, and you have to if you get good results, just fine tune that, sharpen that skill set that you have and run with what you have. And if you're really weak in an area, find someone who's strong in that area and mimic them, repeat them, listen to, like what you said, Clay, 50 tapes by them, or I keep saying tapes. It sounds like I'm an old guy. There's no tapes out there anymore. Audios.
I got an 8-track in my truck still.
I know it. But, just find someone that their voice is your voice, and they're ahead of you in the game, and follow them until you are the leader.
Well, really, to really kind of wind this conversation of leadership up, this is kind of a snippet here. I think you're saying that everyone out there can really learn to be a better leader by just kind of gathering some insights from other people, practicing, and take small steps. But I think what you really said is really interesting. It's not barking at somebody. It's coming alongside of them and caring about them.
It really is. My brother, as you know, is in the military, and he has risen. He's a lieutenant colonel now, and he has a whole different leadership style than me. And I saw him lead men, and they would take bullets for my brother. I simply am not wired that way, but my people would take bullets for me too in a whole different way. We're totally wired differently, but we have people that will follow us and listen to us, and they trust in our leadership. And if you can become a good leader, it will help you in every aspect of your life, not just business, but with your family, your kids, your church. Any organization needs good leadership. This country needs good leaders. And if you're so inclined, study and become one.
It's interesting, Mark, because in November, I decided I wanted to become a better speaker. Now, I've spoken in a number of places, nothing major. I'm not a Mark Stoner, but I've learned. But it was interesting. I joined Toastmasters, Mark.
Yeah.
It's been an amazing class. I wish one thing about Toastmasters. I wish I would have done it 30 years ago. I've learned so much about organizing a small group, how to present your package, what you want to say to somebody. And I would encourage anybody who's out there, if you've ever had an opportunity to join a Toastmasters public speaking class, they say that there's the number one fear is public speaking. The number two fear is death. So that means you'd rather be in the casket than give the eulogy.
That's so funny. And I do know about Toastmasters. I haven't been part of that, but anytime you can find, even whatever your weakness is, if you want to polish that up, I still am scared. When I go on stage, I get nervous every time before I speak. But once I get going, it's not a problem. And most speakers, it's the same thing. You can almost make yourself sick before speaking, but speaking is definitely part of leading. And if you want to be a good leader, go to Toastmasters, go to BNI, take these courses. They're everywhere. There's books on them. Becoming a good speaker is really necessary if you're going to lead a big group of people.
If you're going to be a leader, you have to read. You have to implement what you're learning, buddy. Let me take this to another area.
Sure.
Falling into focus. What do you mean by that in your book, Mark?
So that's a chapter in the book where at one point in my life, and it kind of happens a lot with entrepreneurs, where you really get a lot of good ideas. And sometimes entrepreneurs get addicted to the new thing, the new shiny, idea or business. And there's a real attraction to start things, but not actually get them to the next level. And at one point, I was sweeping chimneys part-time. I was playing music. I was also selling like a multi-level market prepaid legal is what it's called. I think it's called Legal Shield now. And I had a little vending business, and I had a lot of things going, but nothing was really like taking off. Everything was kind of muddling around in the middle zone of it wasn't either great, but it wasn't painful enough to quit either. And so in 2003, I fell off of a roof and I crippled myself. I fell about 30 feet. And I realized at that point that I did not have a business that would support me. My music business was tailing off because I just didn't like being gone all the time. And I had really never truly focused on something enough to really catch it on fire and watch it burn. And so it burned in a good way, that is. And so that chapter is about when I did fall and I was forced to focus. I was forced to really have a moment of self-evaluation. I was a mess. I had not built anything that was worth value, and I needed to really change my game. And it helped me focus on reading books. I started reading, became an avid reader, and that was the only way I could change myself is just to immerse myself in a different world. And so I read a lot. I had started attending a lot of conferences. I started getting mentors, and I was getting other help to start to get myself focused on the one path of business. And you saw me a few years later after I'd got the thing focused, and we were running fast, but then I ran into a whole nother set of issues that I did not know how to deal with, which was my numbers, my marketing, my leadership skills. So one thing led to another set of problems, and as you grow a business, that's all it is just the next set of problems. But I got focused, and man, my business started growing like crazy. So now what do you do when the business is growing crazy and you're not a good leader? Now you got to fix that. So that's what that chapter is about really focusing on where you're going. And if you're an entrepreneur, put some other things down until you get some things really on fire.
Yeah, but Mark, here's the problem. I believe 95% of all entrepreneurs have a severe case of ADD or ADHD. Yeah. And it's how do we do that is the question. I mean, we don't want to drop every kind of med in our brains, but what do you do to discipline? I know one discipline you do, but I want you to talk about that for a minute.
So I'm not sure which discipline that you know
Okay,
of.
You open the door and I'll close it here real quick. I thought man, this guy's gotten so rude on me, man. Every time I send him a text, he won't get back to me. Every time I send him an email, he's too darn busy. I mean, he's got to be a little pompous on this thing, hasn't he? Then I realized one day, oh, that's what it is. He doesn't get distracted like I am.
That's funny. It's very true. And it does upset some people, especially if you don't know really. The thing is, I do stay very focused on whatever I'm in the middle of. I have a friend of mine that is a very very wealthy roofer, and he's a great salesman. But every time his phone rings, no matter if we're having a conversation or he's in front of a customer, he picks that thing up and takes the call. And I simply won't do that. If I'm in the middle of, I'm being engaged in something, everything else is waiting. And if I am writing something, or if I'm in the middle of employee meeting, or if I'm in the middle of something else important, I don't let other things distract me. So many times there's a big buildup of emails, a buildup of text messages, a buildup of phone calls while I'm giving whatever I'm in the middle of 100% of my attention.
But how did you get that habit?
Man, I can't do it any other way. If I get distracted, everything falls down. So it's my limiting factor of what I'm going to take in. Because again, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do my absolute best at it, and I'm going to try to make it amazing. And I can't do that if I'm constantly distracted. The next thing I know, I let you down, or I didn't get you what you needed, or I didn't put full effort into something. And when I put it out there, like this book or a speech, and it's only halfway, I can't be proud of that. So for me, and it even comes to, when I get home with my wife and family, I try not to take on more things, especially during some critical hours of the night when you first get there and you're having dinner, and I just got to put all that down. And that's how I stay. I can kind of have some ADD, but there's other guys that, that's just how they're wired. So my best suggestion is to, if I can't really speak to that necessarily unless you could hand something off when you get it wound up to about 50%, and you've got people on your team that can take that idea from 50 to 100%. And my friend Rob Lindeman, I talk about in that chapter, he has a chimney supply company, and he said he's an entrepreneur, and he's like, I'm great at starting, getting anything from 0 to 75%. And after that, it never gets fully polished in where it should be. So if you're that guy or that girl, you need to have a handoff partner that's an implementer. You're the visionary and you're the entrepreneur, but you have to have an implementer on your team that when you get it spun off, it gets handed off to those people who they don't come up with new ideas, but they like making that idea a lot better. So I'm kind of surrounded with implementers.
Well, here's an interesting thing. I remember someone told me, and it may have been you, I don't know. Too often we run down the field, get to the 95-yard line, and spike the ball.
It's my CFO told me that. He's like, Mark, you're running down the field, and it's like you're getting ready to make a touchdown, and you spike the ball on the 5-yard line. He's like, we almost got this thing rolling or got it to the point, and you celebrate early and jump to another thing. So he helps me with that, and other people have helped me understand that I have certain abilities, and the fine details are not one of them. I am not the fine detail guy. I write in big Sharpies. I got big ideas and I got big directions, but then when it comes down to the details of all the implementation, I hand that off to somebody on my team to push that through. That's kind of how I look at it.
Let's talk about Chris, who runs your warehouse and your operation down there, Mark. Walk through that, how you picked him and why.
He's that guy. So here's Chris in a nutshell. He was a bass player in some of the bands I was in, but Chris was always organized. When you looked at his guitar case and his bass equipment, it was always super clean and very neat, and he put his equipment away the very same way every time, and his clothes were always very nice and neat, and his shoes and his vehicle. And when you look at Chris's life, it's very much put together. Now, Chris isn't the new big idea guy at all, but he is the guy that, man, he'll get behind you and he will follow and he will take it to the nth degree with the details. So for me, in my world, with the as production manager for this company, he gets orders. He gets the vans. Make sure the vans are working. He's the liaison between the office staff and the field staff, and he gets the details right. He is the perfect personality and guy to do that, and I knew that about him. So when the opportunity opened up in my business and I needed that person, I called Chris because I knew his strengths, and he'd never managed a warehouse or been a production manager, but I knew what he was already good at, and I wanted to find a fit in my company, and he's been fantastic.
Well, it's interesting because what you said was interesting. He didn't know how to run a warehouse, but you knew his talent, his skill, and his heart. I think too often we're trying to find this perfect person in trades and skills and what they can do, and it's not what you're hiring for. You're hiring not for skill. You're really hiring for talent of their heart.
You really are. Funny story about Chris. Day one, Chris had never actually driven a tow motor or anything, and so I have a forklift in my warehouse. And day one, he'd never run one of those before, and he tore down half my ductwork in my warehouse. He left the lift up and caught right outside the HVAC unit and tore the ductwork down. He thought he was going to be fired day one. I just laughed. I'm like, man, I don't know how to do that job either. I know how to drive a fork truck, but what he was getting into, I'm like, man, we're just going to have to create this position, and you'll do the very best you can, and I just have to give you the tools to do it.
Wow, that's pretty interesting, Mark. He's always interested me because you really brought him on very early in the growth of your business, the reorganization of your business, didn't you?
Yeah, so Chris has been one of my best friends for over 20 years. He and I played music together, so all those band stories I have, he's part of almost every one of them. And he's a very just good person and good soul. And he and I always get along. He lets me, be the dreamer and the guy out front, and he's the guy right behind with all the solid, backup. He's a bass player, so he and I were the rhythm section of every group we were in, and we were the solid guys holding the whole thing together. Everybody else can go out there and be fancy and sing and get all the limelight of the guitar work. But he and I, drummers and bass players, don't get that much attention a lot of times. So we're just that kind of a group. And uh, he was with me as a helper for many years. When we would play music, we'd come off the road and he would help me fix chimneys. As I started to grow the business, he couldn't spend the time because he had a young girl, and I helped him start his own chimney business for a while that worked for him. And then after a while, that wasn't working for him so well, and we contacted each other, and I said, hey, I'm growing like crazy, and I'd love to have you in this role. And he's like, perfect. And he and I have been through a lot together.
Hey, Mark, let me ask you this. When he sees something that you're steering off course, does he have the offering that you're going to say, tell me, Chris, when I'm going off course, what I need to do in this warehouse operation?
He really does. He's got my ear, and I know if Chris has a problem, it's a real problem. And recently, this last season, we were so busy that he was very overwhelmed with all of the orders. And when I looked at our organizational chart, when I really realized all the people that were, working on him, from all the technicians, all the office, everybody was in his ear to have him do something for them, he started to get to very kind of almost depressed and very angry. And he was very short-tempered, and I knew that's not the Chris I know, and it's because he's under pressure, and under that pressure, the best way he could deal with it is just to be short with people and not offer to help and not offer to, be the guy I knew he was, because he didn't want to let people down, so you just kind of quit talking to him. Well, that's not going to work. So I had to get him an assistant. So now he has an assistant to run all those errands while he takes care of the production and making sure the orders are in and everything is, the POs are in, and it flows. I had to relieve some pressure from him. So he's kind of like my canary in the coal mine. If he starts to kind of wither, I know there's a poison in the air, and we got to get it fixed.
Mark, that's really good leadership, because kudos to you, because you're observing something, you're taking action instead of saying, hey, line up, get things back together. This isn't the real you. You're hearing his heart by watching him do some things. Then you're adjusting and tweaking, like getting him an assistant, figure out what's going to do, how you're going to grow that thing. Yeah,
you have to. If you really care about your people, you kind of become sensitive to them and sensitive to who they are and what they are. And if I ever expect them to give that back to me, I have to invest in them first. And it's easy for Chris because he's my best friend, but there's also other people in my business that when I see a change or a shift in their personality or how they are, I know something's up. And many times I can do something about it. I can put a person in a different role. I can change something. But sometimes I can't. Sometimes that person's just not a good fit anymore. Their heart has changed. They need to go somewhere else, and I want to help them go somewhere else. I don't want them in my business any longer than they want to be. And when there comes we call it a black hole. If all of a sudden Ashbusters becomes a black hole and you turn into our driveway or our parking lot and you're like, oh, crap, I got to do this again. Everybody has it happen sometimes, but if it happens day after day, week after week, month after month, we need to either change your position on the bus or we need to have you move on and let someone else come in that would be excited about the opportunity and breathe new life into the position.
Awesome, buddy. This is Clay Lamb. We're talking with Mark Stoner with the book, Blue Collar Gold, How to Build a Service Business from the Dirt Up. Hey, Mark, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you, Clay.
I'm going to sign off. 73's for here. And remember, be civil with all mankind, love and protect your family, and honor and serve your God. This is Clay Lamb, and I'm out of here. Well, I want to thank Mark Stoner a lot there. He gives a good story about how to grow a business, doesn't he? If you listen to him, you'll learn a lot. And for all you newbies out there, the ones that are probably a year and younger, if you haven't really gotten into reading Anna Mark's books, his books are very, very good, primarily because he has one. It's Blue Collar Gold, Building a Business from the Dirt Up. It's a really good book. I've read it a number of times, and just kind of wave it at him because I just kind of reinforce he knows what he's talking about growing a business. I've seen him at the bottom of the barrel. I've seen him on the top of the mountains. He's always stretching and wanting a little bit more. Well, next week we have Jeremy Biswell. Now, Jeremy Biswell has been in the industry for a number of years, and like a lot of things, a lot of guys in this industry, he brings a lot of wisdom on fireplaces, gas fireplaces preferably. That's what he wants to talk about this week. And what it's going to be is that we're going to talk about vent-free, vented units of gas logs and direct vents. I am a lover of direct vent gas fireplaces. I have two of them back to back. Just love vent-free equipment. It heats really well, very easy to maintain, and for your bang for your buck, it's the best thing I've seen out there. Again, this is Clay Lamb with Ask the Chimney Sweep. Let me ask you a question. Have you liked and subscribed to our channel? YouTube and Google just love it when they see those rave reviews, those comments, those subscribers, and those checks off that you're a member now. We really appreciate if you would. Thank you for joining us here at Ask the Chimney Sweep, and we will see you on the rooftop.